Welcome to Living Life in Love with Vitiligo. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a global vitiligo awareness and education podcast. You will hear the true and authentic stories from people living with vitiligo. You'll also hear from their loved ones, medical professionals, licensed mental health therapists, relationship counselors, global vitiligo support foundations and organizations, and so much more. Sit back and enjoy living life and love with vitiligo. Once again, I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. Welcome to Living Life and Love with Vitiligo. I'm your host, Mark Braxton from Raleigh, North Carolina. On today's show, I have Partice Smith. Welcome to the show, Partice.
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me. Thank you for welcoming me to your community. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we really jump into our conversation, I want you to introduce yourself. Maybe tell our listeners where you're from, maybe a little bit about what you do. Don't tell a lot because we're going to have that part of our conversation here.
Yeah, I am, as you said, Mark, my name is Partice Smith. I'm from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I went to North Carolina Central University, go Eagles, and, lived in Connecticut for a little while. I moved there. My aunt had a stroke, so I moved there to help be part of her caretaker. Then I came back home to Rocky Mount, and so I'll leave you at that. There's other pieces I could put in, but I'm here at Rocky Mount now. Been back since about 2006. So I'm I like to say / country city girl.
I get it. I understand. And we got this little HBCU connection. I'm a Shaw Bear. And also, what you may not know, I have family from Rocky Mount, but I don't know them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Talking to my
family tree.
I know we need to, because talking to my mother on her side of the family, she had an uncle who's going to introduce us to the family, and he passed away. So,
wow.
years and decades go by, don't know my family. So maybe one day have to do that family tree.
You never know. It's such a small world. I might know someone.
We might be cousins. You never know. Look, you never know. You never know. So let's go ahead and kick into the conversation. So for our listeners out there, we know this is a vitiligo centered podcast, but I like to talk to other people because I feel like that's the best way to get the message out there. If I'm talking to strictly the vitiligo community, that information circles in a circle. But if I talk to other people, it branches out. And Partice, we've had a chance to talk many times on your show. Mm-hmm. So before we jump into that, when I say your show, can you tell us a little bit about your show and what you do?
So I have as you said, we're from Rocky Mount, North Carolina. So I started radio here in Rocky Mount. So I have a radio show here now, Monday through Fridays from 12 to 5 on the Promise 102.5. And so basically I just play good gospel music, inspirational music. I like to have guests on and interview people, talk about their music, talk about their business, their, whatever they have going on. It's how I started, just interviewing local people here in the community. And, that just became something that I enjoyed doing. It was encouraging the listeners. It was encouraging me and helping me meet people. So I'm like, hey, I'm kind of digging this radio thing. And so here I am. To go back, I started in 2007, just a weekend show. Now it's a weekday show, Monday through Friday. And of course, I've branched out, syndicated on other stations. So pretty much it was God-led. I was looking, as I said, I've lived in Connecticut. I was looking for my purpose. I was like, God, what did you create me to do? What's my gift? What is it that is going to make me be motivated to wake up every morning? And I found it in radio. And so here I am. So it's a side hustle. I don't know if it's say side hustle, but it's something that I do on the side, of course. So,
and we have that connection also because I went to school for radio, TV, and journalism. However, I ended up in education. And I never thought I would do anything in the radio industry or anything of such because back in the 90s it was so competitive. Everybody was trying to get on 97.5 and blah, blah, blah. I actually did my internship there, but it never led to anything. But joining the vitiligo community, I was offered an opportunity to kind of share my story, my journey about vitiligo. And I was like, no, I've never talked about this stuff. I got to do it on the radio. I said, well, who's going to interview me? And Valerie at the time was like, no one, you're just going to talk. Ooh, okay, I got to talk about this. And I never talked about it at the time. But once I did, she said, I want you to host your own show. So what do I do? You talk to people. Okay, what do I say? Because, I'm a little nervous. But in the beginning, it was draining. But I found strength after a while to talk to people. And I started branching out, and you make those connections. And it's like you build friendships, and they become older friends and old friends, and you see them down the road. Hey, you act like, you've known each other all your lives. Well, we never met. I've only talked to you on the radio. So it is kind of interesting. So getting into radio, I know you said it's a side hustle. What are some of this is for anybody in the community out there who's interested, what are some of the challenges that come with it?
Challenges that come with it is you don't really have a team, right? You're in the studio, you're working now, let me say this, I don't have a team. Some people have engineers, some people have all that. But, I work the board, I do all that, the programming. So I do all of that. So the challenges is doing all that, finding your content, staying focused with your content, taking phone calls and remaining professional, because people can call and ask, questions. And I'll share this with you. When I first started on the radio and people start seeing me out in the community, Mark, they would be like, oh yeah, I know your voice, but you don't look like you sound.
Right.
Like, what is that supposed to mean? So, just being able to keep your composure under circumstances, like that, and just, it's still all love, but sometimes it can be kind of like mundane, to you, because you may not be in that mood. You may not be operating under the grace same grace you have while you're in the studio and you're out,
right.
You might just, go to the store real quick. And it's one of the things that you realize you got to be presentable. You never know you're going to run into and who's going to see you. So it just, the whole package, was an adjustment. You thought you could just do radio and be in the corner, and be in the background, but it doesn't really work like that.
Right. And you got to be, I think, quick with your wit. And I said that I'm going to share an experience. We were doing a Valentine's Day poetry reading, myself and one of the ladies from the community. We were having a great time. This was a live show. So there's no editing, there's no nothing. And we got our first caller. I'm excited. I'm like, oh yeah, we got our first caller. Let's take it. Click this guy in, and he was like, he's calling from somewhere. I say, well, welcome to the show, and he was like, well, I just want to share something with you. Beware of the lizard people. I was like, what? The lizard people? He said, yeah. And he mentioned Wendy Williams was a lizard person and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, how do I handle this one? But I said to him, well, I thank you for tuning in, but I want you to know that lizard people need love too. And I left it like that. I was like, oh Lord. I said I wasn't prepared for that one. So I stopped doing live shows, because you never know who's going to call in, what they're going to say. It could have gone in a much different direction.
Yeah.
But it didn't. But you got to be prepared for those awkward moments.
I got an awkward moment for you as well. We used to do late night worship experiences. We used to do late night phone calls that people would call in. We would pray for people. And so we, was the station owner and another pastor, we were in, and the lady called in. We were calling in for prayer. Everything was serious, right? And we didn't know if it was a prank phone call, if it was for real. But a lady called in and was like, pray for my snuff addiction.
Oh wow!
A snuff addiction. It was like snuff addiction. Like,
who does snuff in this day and time?
That's what we were thinking, and we were trying not to laugh, and we prayed for her, but very speaking of awkward moments, you really have to be quick on your wit, because sometimes you don't know if it's a prank, you don't know if it's real, you don't want to be respectful or just hang up on somebody. But yeah, awkward moments will happen on live radio, so I definitely agree with that. But I think I like live. I like both, but I think live is good if you are really taking like one or two calls during a period of time, and you could just request a song and hang up. When you get into conversations and disagreements and stuff, it can go off.
Right. Now, Katrina and I, we've had opportunities to be live. Were we live on your show? I'm not sure. Or was it?
We came in studio, yeah.
Okay, so we were live on your show. So sometimes we don't know if we're live or not. Now, when we were on NBC 17, My Carolina, we were live then. And it's different because you got to be careful what you say, how you say it. You got to remember the cameras are on you. Don't tap your foot. Don't do this. Oh, smile. Oh, the cameras are, you're thinking all these things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, did I say that right? When you go back and listen to it, oh, I didn't make a mistake on that. But in the moment, you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, now, you don't.
Let me ask you this. We talk about the challenges, being live. What are some of the joys of it? Like just having a show. What are some of the things after you finish your show, you just go, yes, Lord, you really hit it out the park.
Yeah, for me, great question. The joys of it is, just getting people saying how to play the song or play their favorite song, or they call in and they said they enjoyed the show. I mean, those are the things that keep the energy going. When you just do things spontaneous and you don't even know who is on the other end that's really listening or that is really helping, and they tell you, or they be like, you played my favorite song. Why did one of the songs a lot of people like, when I first started, No Weapon by Fred Hammond. And, when that song came on, for some people, it was just a blessing to them. I think the joys is just listen to the people say how blessed they were and how they were uplifted. It's not just the music though, Mark. It's the personality. It's what you say to encourage people. It's some of the guests that you have on that they can relate, like what having you on. Like I share with you, I have family with vitiligo. And so just people saying, it's good to know that they're not alone, but by some of the people that come on the show. So that's some of the joys.
And and I'm gonna share a weird moment. Every time somebody says you're not alone, Michael Jackson's song pops in my head. I don't care who it is. Every time they say you are not alone, I'm like, you are not alone. Okay. I don't sing, y'all, so don't think I'm gonna sing, but it pops in my head every time.
Now that's gonna be in my mind. So
absolutely. It is one of those weird things.
Tito, rest in peace, his brother Tito just passed away.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, wow. And a lot of people don't know when we celebrate World Vitiligo Day, it is the day that Michael Jackson passed away. So it's just to honor him. And for people that are out there saying, no, he didn't have vitiligo, he bleached his skin, he didn't have vitiligo. He did have it. And one thing about vitiligo, it can spread so quickly. And I guess it all depends on the individual and your body and how it attacks the body. So it's not the same for every person.
Yeah.
Now let's talk. Now you've had some great encounters in your radio experience. Now I haven't met anybody famous except for myself. No, I'm kidding. But no, I haven't met anyone famous through the radio, through my interactions here. But I've met a lot of people from other countries. And I think that's exciting, talking to people from the Czech Republic or from Brazil or different islands and all over. And it's as if we're just, we're cousins, How is it in your field where you have come across people from the entertainment industry that we go, oh, it's a celebrity. Ooh, like, how was that?
Yeah, I mean, you really have to feel the energy of the person. Some of David and Tamla Mann are always welcoming to people, taking pictures and interviewing, and but you can kind of feel the energy of some of the ones that really like, just wave at me,
Right.
just hi, I recognize you, I know who you are. But it's great because you get to realize, as we said earlier, they're just like us,
Right.
they deal with the same issues like us. They just happen to be in a different limelight than us. And I think when you approach them like that, I think they like that. They like to be considered as, I'm just like you. I go through the same struggles like you. I listen to gospel music like you.
Right.
I got some of the same songs like Partice Smith. She's She is really hilarious. I mean, she is. I met her once at Mega Fest, and we was like, let's take a picture. And her agents and publishers are pushing her along, and she was like, we were walking, and she was trying to take a picture with us, and she was cracking jokes. And I mean, she's really down to earth. And of course, Brian White, he played in Daddy's Little Girl. So when I seen him, I could only think of that line where the little boy said, "Get away from my daddy." So when he was out with Gabrielle Union, so you think of their character's name, but you don't see, they don't know that we see them as the character instead of who they are.
Right.
So yeah, so it's pretty fun, just being able to talk to them and find out some of the things that they're passionate about, some of the things that they're doing. It's pretty fun. It's pretty fun. I can't say it's not. It is awesome. It's definitely a trend for us. Yeah.
And that's one of the things. They're human just like we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we do put certain people, our athletes, our entertainers, and that's musicians and all, everybody on this pedestal, and there's so much more than we are. But no, they do the same things we do. Yeah, they have bodyguards, they might have money, they might be able to travel and go to different places, but they have the same experience. They get tired, they get frustrated. Sometimes they might be dealing with depression or sadness and joys and all the things in life that we all experience, And I like what you said, like with some of them, they just want you to approach them as people, not as their character. Because I get it. We see them as certain characters, and then when you meet them, they're not that person, You're like, wait a minute, hold on, you're not really that person, and that's the person I thought I was gonna meet,
Yeah.
And it is different. I even think about that in terms of education, being a teacher. When we walk into the building, we are the celebrities to our students. They see you walking on the hall, they're hey, and I'm like, hey, hey, how you doing? Fist bump, and they run in. But I also remind my students that I'm human too. Yeah. I have feelings, I have emotions, I get hungry, I get tired, I don't want to do this sometimes. I get it. I said, but we are more alike than you realize. And the school I'm at, real quick, is an international school. So I try to express to my students, we're from all over the world. I said, so when you look at somebody with a different culture, it may be different, but they're still human. They still like some of the same things you like. I said, how many of you guys like to eat? And everybody raise their hand. You like to play? Yeah. You like to breathe air? I'm like, yeah, we're people. That's how it is.
That's how it is.
Right. And I like what you said about feeling the person's energy. As the vitiligo community, we struggle with that sometimes because we want to connect with others with vitiligo, but we got to be careful because not everybody's ready. And not everybody wants to talk about vitiligo, and not everybody can. So I'm kind of backtracking a little bit. So you gave us an opportunity to really come on your show and just talk about vitiligo and share what it's like, to share some of the good, the bad, and the ugly, a little bit of everything. Before that, how much did you know about vitiligo?
Well, I don't know if you can remember, Mark. I couldn't even how to say the word. Like I practiced it for weeks. Like
I do remember that, but I didn't tell anybody.
And I still got it wrong. So, like I said, I had seen it. I had heard Michael Jackson. That's what he had, and I got relatives in my family that has vitiligo. So I didn't know much about it. Like I didn't know anything about it. I just didn't know how it happened or why it happened. So coming on your show, I knew it would educate me and it would help me to be able to approach people with it, tell them that I'm familiar with it, and especially with the kids. After you told me about how the kids are, and I start seeing kids like that, I started kind of, when I see kids, just kind of going to them, like, talking to them, making them know that they're special, that they're unique. They're not any different from anybody else. So it helped open me up to be able to say, this is how we can come into the vitiligo community and show love and appreciation, to have inclusiveness.
Absolutely.
Just because we don't really suffer from it, we don't know what it's like to struggle with that. We know what it's like to struggle in early what we deal with, our own insecurities, but we don't know what it's like to struggle to have an insecurity because your skin is have a coloration. So yeah, it was good for me. I really, I mean, I was excited, when Katrina came and we were talking about it, and she gave me a bracelet, and I do wear it. I do wear my purple bracelet. I'm gonna like
there it is.
Yeah.
And it is interesting, because even for myself, having vitiligo, I didn't know a lot about it until 2019. You'll hear that a lot in my conversations because I didn't want to research. I didn't want to know anything. I was just trying to live, and also realizing too, I was struggling with it. Mm-hmm. And once I had the opportunity to share my journey with a student, or a grade level of students for a student, it kind of opened up my eyes to say, you know what, this is a great opportunity to share with others, but do the research, learn about it. Yeah. And what's interesting, a lot of people may not know. Now, there are doctors and researchers that they're still studying vitiligo. There's still a lot of information they don't know. They can say, we think it starts by this. We assume it's this, but there's no real concrete information. Some will say it's stress related. Some say it's hereditary, but we still don't have a concrete answer of why it only happens in some people. Is it a gene? I always say it's a gene that lies dormant within us and it comes out in some people, but I'm not a scientist, so I really can't go that far to say it, but I try to put it out there. Yeah. But we're still learning. Even we think, like I had mine since 1995-ish, 96, around that time. To look, we're in 2024 and we still don't know enough. Yeah. But I feel like at some point there's going to be a breakthrough so we can get a better understanding of the condition, how it starts, and how to better live with it, because there's no cure. There are treatments, but how to live with the condition and be comfortable in your own skin, even though it's something you don't like, Mm-hmm. And let's be real with people. We are not always comfortable in our skin, and may not even have vitiligo. It's That's just right. Things about ourselves. I don't like this. I don't like the way, this part of my neck pops out. Just all these little things people deal with.
That's why Botox, we'll get into it. I talk about it in my book. That's why Botox and, all these plastic surgeries and all of that is so prevalent now and making, so much money in that industry, cosmetic industry, is because people wake up and they see something that they don't like and they want to fix it and compare it to somebody else's nose. But
right.
Talk about, but God made us all, we're
Absolutely.
all differently and wonderfully made, Mark. So, I get it, because sometimes you'd be like, wait a minute, God, why you didn't give me this? I want a little bit of that. God, why I can't sing, God?
Right. But I feel he puts certain things in your life that allows you to learn how to live, and you could share with others and encourage others and inspire others. Because I think about this, if I didn't have vitiligo, I wouldn't be on the podcast. Mm-hmm. I mean, just to be real, I wouldn't be talking about vitiligo. I wouldn't have connected with people from other parts of the world. My world would have been this little small pocket right here in Raleigh, but instead I know people from all over now. So,
and people know you. They know you for the work that you do to bring awareness to vitiligo. So your voice has a big impact in your community.
Well, at one point, be honest, I was like, oh, nobody know me. I felt that way until I went to a conference, and when people come out and say, I listened to your podcast, thank you for sharing that on the podcast. And I'll often say, with the podcast and anything I do, it's never about the numbers, never about how many people are subscribed or all that. No, it's about the 1 or 2 people that I can connect with. It may change somebody's life. Yeah. And it's not always what I say. It could be something my guests have shared. But it's going to resonate with somebody. It's going to connect with somebody. It's going to help somebody. And that's all that matters, even if I don't know who it is. Yeah, that's so true. Now, everybody is connected. We talked about being a small world earlier. Everybody is connected to someone. We are connected
to someone to either encourage them. Somebody's connected to
Right.
us to pour into us. So we all iron sharpening iron. We're all doing what we're supposed to be doing out here.
Absolutely. And I always say this, and I'm going to get to something else in a minute, but I always say this. You have to be careful how you interact with people, how you treat people, because you never know who knows who. And this summer I was working and I had an assistant working with me in the classroom. We're talking and she's like, I'm from Rocky Mount. I was like, oh, for real? You know Partice? Yeah, I know Partice. I'm like, for real? You know, it's a small world because you don't know who knows who. And you got to be very careful. I say treat every person you interact with kindness, even if they don't return it, and to you, just still treat them with kindness because they may remember that.
Yeah.
And don't always expect it the same thing in return. Even if you're doing something nice with somebody, they might just need it, and your reward may not come from that person. Could be down the road somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. That's so true, Mark.
Now,
that is so
I want to talk about something else. You mentioned it. See, I listen sometimes. You mentioned this book. Let's talk about your book.
So yeah, let's talk about it. No, yeah, let's talk about it. I'm excited, but go ahead. What's the question?
Right. So first of all, you have to tell us the title of the book and what was your inspiration behind writing the book.
Okay. So I do want to show the book. It's truly unique. I am somebody. My name's there. I don't know if you can see it.
Hold it up a little bit higher.
Okay.
And there it goes.
Okay.
And for our listeners or people that are going to view this, I will have the information about the book at the end of this video. So no worries. You'll get a chance to find out how you can get the book.
Yes. So truly unique. I am somebody was just inspired by me. Lord, what is my purpose? Lord, what is my gift? What is it that I'm really born to do? What was it that we talked about it earlier and we talked about radio, but it was something else that I felt like I was to deposit into people. And it was this book, Along the Journey. I journal a lot, and I was, moved from Connecticut, coming back to North Carolina that was a transition. Even moving to Connecticut was a transition. So I just felt like, I had been in transitioning for so long, and I just wanted to put something out from this journaling that I was doing for my experiences. And I noticed something when I was going to church. I was noticing that, I was going to church, we were going to church, but did people really think that they were different? Because sometimes, let's be honest, you can see a lot of competitive in church. You can see you can see this cliquish stuff in church, but everybody has a purpose. Like, you don't have to try to be there early so you can sit on the front row. You don't have to do, don't have to try to do all this maneuvering to get noticed by the pastor. And I wanted to write that book because I just was journaling about myself. Like, I am unique. Like, I know I'm unique. Like, I was building up my confidence, building up my self-esteem by these affirmations, by journaling. And I just said, I want to share it. So at one point, right after doing the pandemic, I said, I want to finally get this. I wrote this book. This book was 7 years old when I wrote it. So it was been in my computer forever, a manuscript. And I really didn't even think I was going to ever get it published, Mark. So I, found a publisher, Shiro Publishing. She's out of Raleigh. Erica Perry, she's out of Raleigh as well. And I found her, put it together. I had a book signing. It was pandemic, so it was virtual, but had a lot of people, friends and family to support, and I still get people ordering it today. So yes, and I get people telling me how they were blessed by reading it. I got one of my friends that she read certain chapters in it every day. Like, she carries it. She sent me a picture, and it literally was like worn. Like, you could tell that she definitely takes it with her. So, and just not too long ago, I had to read have a chapter in there called Forgiven to Live Again. So not too long ago, I said, I might need to read this chapter myself, what I wrote in here about forgiveness, because sometimes, people can rub you the wrong way. You don't want to find anything in your heart that's blocking your blessings or anything that's keeping you from growing or going to the next level. So I said, let me read this chapter, and it just blessed me all over again, just to even know that I wrote it and to see how much I've grown and from that reading that chapter, you know, and how much I could just go back and still add to it today, right?
Right.
So, but it's a great book. It's about 15 chapters, different
Okay.
chapters. I have different chapters in there, but talk about how we are fearfully and wonderfully made and how we don't have to be in competition with each other
Right.
and where our value comes from. As you can see, I could just go on and on and on.
And that's fine. And I'm going to talk about two things. One, you're talking about forgiveness. You know, that's something that we all have to learn, not just forgiving others, but forgiving ourselves, because sometimes we'll do things or make mistakes in life and we never forgive ourselves and we beat ourselves up. We're also human, and sometimes we make the wrong choice. And you know, you just bring it to God and say, you know what, help me make right choices. Because sometimes we're impulsive, you know, or we're acting out of emotions and all these things. We say things, we do things, and then we regret it in the end. But we got to forgive ourselves, you know, and if we've hurt others, forgive, you know, ask for forgiveness, you know. And I even tell that to my students. I said, you know, if somebody does something to you, you know, forgive them. Just say, I forgive you and move on. You know, you can't, if that person is still angry with you for whatever reasons and you've already forgiven them, that's something they have to work out within themselves now. But you've taken the next step to say, hey, I forgive you for what you did.
Yeah, we don't want to get stuck in that space.
Right.
Holding on to it, you know. You always hear the infamous saying, unforgiveness is like drinking poison, expecting somebody else to die. You get, and we were talking about self-esteem and confidence. Unforgiveness, you hold all of that back from being able to, you know, walk in love and walk in unforgiveness because you're holding on to something that somebody else is, as they say now, living the best life. They ain't thinking about it.
Right.
And that was one of the things that really, when I got that revelation, I'm like, I'm over here mad. And I actually saw the person. I'm over here mad, and that person over there laughing, enjoying life. Let me get over here and start enjoying my life as well. So sometimes you actually have to see it in action for it to click. And you know, and it's still something that we will all, I should say always, but it's still something we would be challenged with because we are human, right? And because we are so sensitive beings, we can be. I know I can be. And we just what we want and what we want to see. And when we get hurt, you know, it just, you know, it's hurtful. Hurtful things happen, but God has built us to be able to sustain and to keep walking and to keep doing it, to keep walking in grace, giving other people grace and giving ourselves some grace as well.
Absolutely. And the second thing, well, first of all, thank you for sharing that, because I feel like we all need to hear that. And within the vitiligo community, we need to forgive ourselves for things. And sometimes we have to say, having vitiligo is it's something that happens to some of us, but it's not necessarily something you've done to deserve it. Because some people feel like I did this in life, that's why I have vitiligo. You know what? It can happen to anybody. You know, it has nothing to do with what you've done in life, but sometimes it's an opportunity to expand on your life, to do something miraculous or something exciting to help others.
Yes.
And
that's what any of us, like any of us, whatever negative or bad thing that we think is happening in our lives, it's an opportunity to share how you come out of it. It's an opportunity to grow. So that's where any of us, right? We can always take that. That's a great advice.
Now, I'm going to actually get you a publisher, because I like to write too. I like to write poetry, and I have some short stories that I've written that I've been trying to, you know, like you said, you hold on to stuff and it's 10 years later. Like, I'm still holding on to this. So I actually had a book of poetry, but it was like a digital book of poetry, but I want to create a physical book of poetry. And I think about back then to where I am now, I'm like two different people. So what I want to do eventually is combine the two and start and keep the original where I started, which is about some changes in life and all this stuff, going to where I am now, which is a totally different evolution. And So I'm working on putting all that together, but I do want to find a publisher and put it together and all that stuff and put it out. Then I have short stories for kids that I've been writing and tested it on the students. Who like, all right, let me read the story and see how they like it. They were like, oh, I like that. I'm like, yeah, that's good. All right. I'll tell you about the author later. But don't you steal that story. I see you writing this stuff down. If you're writing it down. But I feel like if God gives you gifts, use them. He wants you to use them to help others. And that's what I want to do. Put together this anthology of poetry on one end and an anthology of short stories for kids, you know. But I know you mentioned some publishers right here in Raleigh. So we're gonna make sure we get that information at the end, because I'm not the only person listening going, hey, I want to write a book too, you know.
And how to make this full circle. I heard about her on a podcast, right? Okay. So that to make that full circle. So yeah, people are listening that are waiting for somebody. And I'm gonna use this kind of short analogy as well. You know, when we were growing up, we had to in my era, you're not too far from me, Mark, but you couldn't just go in your grandma's house and go in the kitchen and go in the refrigerator, get anything you want out, right? Right. So I look at that as what we're doing is we're already automatically saying you can go in the refrigerator and get the blessings, use your gifts, and get everything that God has for you in the refrigerator. What I'm using that as an analogy, but it's wide open. Just open it up, and just get whatever you need out of it, because God has so much in store for us. You know, the blessings of the Lord make it rich. Yeah, no sorrow with it. And I think when people hear us right here, Rocky Mount, Raleigh, wherever, it's like you don't have to be. You know, I tell people all the time, you don't have to be in LA and New York and Atlanta and do all of this great things. Not anymore. You know, it might have been like that years ago, but now so many resources are locally for wherever you are. You know, your cell phone can make a movie to your short story.
Absolutely. Like, we have the technology. The era we grew up in, and yes, we'll tell on our age. The era we grew up in, we didn't have access to all this. You know, when you had to write a book, like, you really had to write. You really had to have somebody really edit. You didn't have the computer technology to do it. To do art, you actually had to have the skills to draw. Now you can do digital stuff. You can speak it into your phone. It's going to do whatever you want. So utilize those talents you have. Like you said, to create, I feel like to create whatever you want to create. I do paint, I draw, I have, so I'm trying to utilize everything God gave me. We talked about earlier putting together shows. Yeah, I don't have an engineer. I don't have a musician that makes the music. I don't have the person to edit. I put all this together myself. I take the time to do it. And I have fun doing it. You know, it's just, you got to enjoy what you do.
Yeah, you have to.
Right.
You have to. And, one thing about it as well, learning a lot of this was on the job training. Right. You went to broadcast journalism school at Shaw. Well, when I graduated, I thought I was going to be the next like Cagney and Lacey. Like, I'm really telling my age now. So, I did my internship with the city of Durham with the probation parole. And, when I came out, state government, very political at the time, still is, but, you really now state jobs, millions of jobs open. You can go get a job now, but back then it's like the door, it was tight. So you really had to know somebody. But with that being said, now you can really much do anything and learn what you need to do. YouTube, books. It's so much out there to teach you. And on the job training, we talked about it, making mistakes, having something to try to troubleshoot and fix yourself so you know how to do it next time. And one thing that I realized, we make things harder than what they really are.
We do. And it's okay. Like I tell my students, it's okay to fail at something, but as long as you're trying and you keep trying. I said, because the next time you're going to learn another step, maybe that can help you solve whatever problem it is. And don't give up.
Yeah.
A lot of times when we don't succeed at something, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm guilty of that. I'm not going to do that. We start down on ourselves. No, don't do that to ourselves.
Yeah.
Like, keep that faith, keep trying, even if it's not what you want, doesn't mean it's not going to ever be there. It may take
Right.
time. I mean, and who knows? Like you talking about Cagney and Lacey. I mean, when I was in school, we were working on reel to reel. So that tells our age. Yeah.
And we took photography class. We actually went in the
dark room, right? Like it was none of this click. Oh, let me go download it tomorrow. No, we had to do the real stuff, the chemicals, and you was smelling that stuff. It's like, yeah. So
it's gotta be a class action suit out on those chemicals.
That's what happened. I was in that dark room, and those chemicals got on my skin, and they created vitiligo. No, for our listeners, no, it didn't. It had nothing to do with that. Somebody's gonna be like, "Who was the dark?" No, it wasn't. But no, real quick, we're getting close to the end of our discussion, which this has been great. I thank you for coming on. Couple things. Share with the listeners the radio stations that you are affiliated with, and I know you mentioned it earlier, but how they can listen to you, and also the one in the other state.
Okay, so we have soulprosperradio.com, soulprosperradio.com. That's spradio.com, but it's really Soul Prosper, this name, but the internet is spradio.com. And we have dafentertainment.com. That's out of Nashville, Tennessee. I think I also shared that one with you.
Okay.
Soul Prosper Radio is out of Dallas, Texas.
Okay, gotcha.
And, so yeah, and Soul Arise Radio, that's in Antigua. That's Soul Arise Radio. So I'm on there Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 3.
Wow. Okay. So what we're gonna do, Partice, at the end of this, I'm gonna make sure I have all those radio shows lined up, so when people listen, they can go, "Oh, I'm gonna go ahead and listen to our show," because that's how we do it. We look out for each other, So we make sure we have that information. Real quick, I'm curious, like with the Antigua show, like how is that?
So I haven't been to Antigua. I need to go. I want to go to Antigua. I have some friends that's been there. So it's online. And so I try to mix it up because, it's a lot of Caribbean over there as well.
Right.
So I try to have a lot of different styles of gospel music. So it can kind of fit every day because I'm on different days. So I want to try to program it to where it'll fit on a Friday as well as a Sunday. So you have a little worship, you have some praise, and you have because I don't know the listeners and the style. I like to introduce new music, some gospel hip hop. Lecrae, he's a popular gospel hip hop that I like his music. So I try not to play songs that I don't like, Mark. Right. I know as a teacher,
I get it.
Heard some bad English in there, but it's hard because I feel like if I don't like it, my listeners might not like it, right? But I will play it if it's good quality. I don't want to judge it. I may let other people judge it. Hey, what do you think? I used to do a show with a guy here in Rocky Mountain, Darnell Bryant. We had a show, Hit or Miss. We would play a song and we let people call in. Is it a hit or is it a miss? So, I like to kind of do stuff like that to see what other people think. And there are songs that I didn't like in the beginning that I like now. So it kind of grew on.
Right. It's interesting. When we talk about music, when I started doing my podcast, when I did the radio, I would build my own show, but I wanted to avoid copyright issues. So I would create my own music. And that's what I've stuck to it. So when I was doing the radio show, I tried to have a different song for every guest. Well, you have so many guests and you try to do a different song for them, it gets tedious after a while. Yeah. But I wanted everyone to feel like their show is unique. Their show is different. It's not the same. Absolutely. And that becomes your signature. Yeah. You don't know what kind of music you're going to have. Like, I had Flavors Ice Cream on. I'm giving another plug. Flavors Ice Cream right here in Raleigh. I had Elisa on, and I tried to build my show, my music, around her ice cream parlor. And there's a song that I created on there, one of the apps I use. And part of the thing it says, you know, you're the flavor and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I wanted at the time with her show, but at the same time, I didn't want to have anything that, you know, YouTube or anything else goes, you use somebody's music. I'm like, that was mine. you can't, you know, you can't say that I stole it from somebody else or took it from me. If you want to pay me, I mean, that's cool. But
yeah. And you do have to be careful. Because one time, well, I remember when I could post my shows on Facebook, like I could do the link and people could go there and listen to it. But now I try to just do the interviews or excerpt from the interviews because I can, you know, those belong to me, of course. But yeah, and sometimes with the artists that I interview, if we do Facebook Live, I own the copyrights to this on their page or whatever. So, but yeah, they will definitely pull you with those copyrights. It's definitely become, you know, rightfully so, though.
Right. And so that's what I try to avoid. So when people listen to my shows, you're never going to hear anybody's. If you hear anything on my show that you hear, if you hear it, I made it. So don't say I heard that somebody. No, I use my computer. I spend my hour or 2 hours working on something unique for each show. So the last thing, we talked a little bit about everything. And if I left anything out, then I'll be like, hey, Partice, when are you available? So we don't follow up. But what I like to do at the end of every show, I like to ask my guests to leave the listeners with some words of encouragement, because I think it's very important to always end each show on a positive note. So this is your chance. Whatever you want to share, whatever you want to say, talk to the listeners or watchers, the viewers.
Thank you. What I would like to say is one of my favorite scriptures. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. And I just want each and every one of you to know that you are a light in this dark world. We see a lot of things going on in this world right now, but you can be a light in a dark place. Know that God has created you. You're the image of him. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. But if you know when you walk in a room that you bring the light, you bring who you are, you bring your truly unique self, because you are somebody in that room, and don't let anybody ever dim your light. I think that will definitely encourage you. It encourages me sometimes. I have to remind myself, and I'll share this with you, Mark, you know, going into these different places like the Stella Awards, some of these nice banquets with TD Jakes, and you see all these people in the room, and at some point I had to tell myself I belong in the room. You know, I'm here, I belong here. You know, no, don't let the devil tell you that you don't belong where God has ordered your steps to go. And sometimes you would talk yourself out of places where God has ordered you to go. No, I'm not. Imagine me getting approved to feel like, so I'm putting that out there. I have never been approved for the Grammys. I'm using that as an example. I'm saying, imagine being invited to a party, right? And not showing up because you feel you're not worthy enough to be in the room. So I would just encourage you to know that you are the light of the world. And just know that God has a purpose and a plan for you. It may not start out the way you think, but everything you're going through, everything that you've done or been through, God is going to use it for you, for somebody else. So as I've learned, nothing that you've ever done is wasted, even your failures.
Right.
So I want to encourage you every day, no matter what, just to know that you're waking up, that you are somebody. And I'm trying to get political, but growing up, Jesse Jackson, one of the famous sayings that I always love to hear him say, you are somebody because God didn't make any junk. And I talk about that in my book. I have a chapter about that. So just remember, you are somebody because God don't make no junk.
Absolutely. And you're not alone. I had to throw that in there.
And you, if I could sing, I would hit that high note.
You know, that's right. And I'm glad you said that about walking into the room. And my weird sense of humor kicked in. But with the vitiligo community, we share a space with the top dermatologists in the world that focuses on vitiligo. So when we go to our conferences, you know, you have all these doctors, you know, they're doctors because they want to show you they're doctors, but we also have to walk into the room with confidence.
Mhm.
And my weird sense of humor had me walking in like George Jefferson. You know, you got to, you know, you have to have that confidence and not
Yeah.
care what other people think. You know,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you got to love yourself. So I didn't know this is how I'm going to end things. And I do this all the time. You know, always say that, you know, this world is in need of love. You know, you got to love your neighbor. You got to love your enemy. And I'll back up on that again. Love your enemy. We all have enemies. Got to love them. They need love. Love your spouse, love your siblings. I know sometimes we always don't see the world, you know, in the same way, but we got to love each other. You know, that person that cut you off on the road, or the person sometimes standing on the road asking for assistance, you got to love people, you know. But most of all, before you can love other people, you got to learn how to love yourself. So look in that mirror and tell yourself, I love you. Partice, thank you for being a part of the show. And we'll talk later for the viewers. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all take care. Peace.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
You see